Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. Now, we're taking a look here today at SLP, which is Small Love Potion, Sleepy Love Potion. I truly don't know what the title is. I just know that there's a really big community here and I get a lot of requests for it. So thank you so much to my community and my patrons for asking for me to cover this. Now, I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. You should do your own research at all times. In fact, it's probably best to do your own research on something like this anyways, because there's some strong fundamentals behind it. Because obviously with this doing very well and Bitcoin doing poorly, there's a correlation. There's some kind of fundamentals that are actually very, very beneficial that are causing the price to increase contrary to Bitcoin. Those are always good things to recognize. That being said, yeah, feel free to reference my Telegram community. I have a Patreon account as well. Show your support there. I have a Signal group too, where I take everything we're going to learn here today and utilize that moving forward to find the signals that we all trade together. So I basically share my trades with my community, and you can reference that in your own time if you'd like. The link is in the description below. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and check it out. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at SLP. And before we do, we always look at Bitcoin, Ethereum first to get a baseline in the market so we know what in the hell is going on. Because today and yesterday was a really strange time in our Bitcoin lives. You'll see what I'm talking about here in a moment if you've been living under a rock. Now, if you happen to wake up this morning with a bright red portfolio full of altcoins that are suffering, we'll also cover that too. So looking here at Bitcoin, first of all, we always look at this first. Oh, and to preface, I use TradingView.com desktop application. I have a link in the description below for a referral if you're considering, maybe utilizing it, because it's a really good platform. But the paid version is much better because of the fact that you get so many more indicators present at one time. So if you want to follow along, you might want to consider that, of course, but there's a free month in there for you as well. But what I'm getting at here is that TradingView allows for us to go ahead and see everything we need to. So we're going to take a look at a few things here first. And by that, what do I mean by that is that, Bitcoin, first of all, we're looking at the 4-hour chart. Now, the 4-hour chart is the best time frame for me personally to get best perspective without having to look at anything else. So if I have one chart to rule them all, or one chart for the rest of my life, I had to live on an island with one chart, it'd be the 4-hour chart. Just because it really helps you get best perspective on things. The moving averages also, simple moving averages here. The 50 and the 200 are the ones that the industry leaders are using, the whales. So we want to follow along and use what they use because they're controlling the market. That being said, let's go ahead and take a look here. So first of all, the purple line is the 200. That's the 200-day simple moving average, and the orange is the 50-day simple moving average. Now these are, again, working as resistance levels at this point. They've been, inconsistent support and resistance levels for a little while, but all in all, you can tell the 200's been working as a pretty strong support. We got kind of a little bit of excitement back here on June 15th, where it touched about 42,000 range. But ever since then, it's just been, kind of terrible, I guess, for lack of better terms. All explicit lyrics aside, it's been bad, right? We've had this slow downward channel, and we eventually lost and broke support. And now we've been hovering underneath 30,000 for some time now, right? So it's just one of those things that's, I guess it's unfortunate depending on how you look at it, but it's also understandable just based on the way that it's trending and progressing. Bitcoin's been getting hammered this year with a lot of unique news, of course, so it's not abnormal at all. So don't think this is like a strange, out of the blue thing. We've been kind of seeing this coming for a while, and it's unfortunate, but we hate to say we told you so, but it's here now. So we got to deal with that. Regardless, that's just hearsay for the most part, but generally speaking, what we want to look at is the technical here. That's why we're here. So to clarify, we got the 50-day moving average again working as a resistance. We've got the RSI also working pretty much as a resistance here. You can see in the last week, the RSI just barely touched over 50, and it's been just getting beaten down ever since then. Now it hit 30 here recently, which is unfortunate, but also standard, right? It's kind of normal for the sell-off that we saw that occurred. And what's interesting is the price usually ramps back up and picks up after it hits 30, right? RSI is usually a pretty strong indication of a return. In other words, there was nothing that happened here. I mean, it did try, for lack of better terms, but if you look at it here, I mean, geez, it's getting rejected hard. So I mean, you look at, and you can see what, 1, 2, 3 hours in a row, 12 hours in a row, it tested the major resistance level now, not the support anymore, bear in mind, resistance of 30,000, okay? So that's kind of what we're looking at there. So 30,000 is a major resistance level. It's been tested almost 3.5 times, I guess you could say. And now it's kind of hovering around 29,000, maybe 500 to 700. My speculation is that Bitcoin is going to continue to decrease and at least test 29,000, because that was, I would say, the most recent support level, because it was tested one time back here about 28.8, and I would say that we're probably going to see that get tested soon. That's the nearest support level that Bitcoin has right now. Minus that, we're looking at maybe 24,000 as the next major. All right. So it is unfortunate, but that is kind of what's going on here. And for the record, I did delete or just remove 42,000 for resistance, because we don't need to worry about that right now. I'll mark that again later. But all we have at this point is 30,000 for resistance. 50-day moving average is right around 32, and then the 200-day moving average is about 33.3. So that's kind of where we're at for Bitcoin. Moving on to Ethereum. This is essentially another situation that is unfortunately, I wouldn't say it's as dire. Thankfully, it bounced off of its previous support of 1725. So you can see that there. And it's still trending under both moving averages, right? So again, Ethereum is the ugly stepchild for Bitcoin right now. It normally does very well when Bitcoin does poorly, but we have not seen that kind of action in some time, right? So where were the days between April and May? We haven't seen that in some time. So perhaps in the future, but for now, Ethereum is just going a whole lot of downward and sideways. I would venture to guess that we're going to stay above 1700, 1725 as a support level for a little while. I think we're going to be in pretty good shape to see it consistently sideways. Again, if Bitcoin breaks 29,000, you can expect Ethereum to break its major support level of 1725. I can guarantee that. But thankfully it did bounce, and it's not in dire straits by any means, but I would say the lowest it's going to go is that right now, depending on what Bitcoin wants to do, right? That's just the bottom line. Major resistance at about 2,900. I think we're a long ways off from that, but that is a potential. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at SLP here. Now, honestly, I don't know what to call it. I look it up. Is it small love, sleepy love? I'm not really sure, but we'll just stick with SLP for now. But what's interesting is it's on the axis, which is AXS. I believe it's on the same or in the same level, whatever you want to call it. It's moving parallel in a lot of ways with AXS, and you saw AXS probably take off as well. I covered that previously, so it's on the same blockchain, so to speak, and that is essentially why we're seeing this still do well when Bitcoin does poorly. I previously identified the sell-off patterns here where this was impacted by a China candle on the 19th. And then prior to that, I think, what is it? Actually, it was introduced here to Binance April 30th. So that being said, that didn't really experience the very first Bitcoin sell-off, right? It only experienced the second one, and again the 12th as well for the Elon candle. Either way, what I'm getting at here is that we only have the 50-day moving average here working as a support level, and that's essentially where we're at for the one-day chart. The RSI is still staying above 50, which is good, but it's under 70, so more room for growth. As well as the fact that we had a slight divergence recently, but that wasn't really all that terrible. It looks like it's recovered already since then. Looking at the 4-hour chart, what I like to look at here is the moving averages, of course. You can see the 50-day moving average is working as a resistance. It's been tested 3 times in the last 12 hours. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that it's getting tested a few times. It looks like it's ready to try to break through, though. So just be prepared for that, but it's currently working as a resistance. So the only way to know if it's going to break through is to look at the 1-hour chart. We'll identify that here in a moment, but more importantly, the 4-hour chart too. It has to break, in order for it to break above fully, it has to close above in that time frame. Okay, so this is obviously still trying to figure itself out. I think we're about an hour and a half into this time frame, so at this point in time, we're going to just kind of see it hanging out there for a little while. 200-day moving average, currently a support, but that's less relevant at this point. RSI is up over 50, which is a good sign. That gives us the bearish momentum that we're looking for, crash and bullish momentum. It's no longer bearish because, as you can see here in the last 48 to 72 hours, it was staying under 50. And in case you're not familiar with this, the RSI does work as a support and resistance level. Anything under 50 sometimes is considered bearish. Anything over 50 is considered bullish. So now that we're up over that, there's a strong likelihood for it to continue to stay above and that to work as a support. We've got a convergence here as well on the 20th which was today, technically at 5 a.m. So right around 12 hours ago, we saw that this spike here. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark that, kind of see if there's a correlation between that and the Ichimoku cloud, which we're going to take a look at here next. So with the cloud, to obviously note, when you're under the cloud, it's considered bullish, correction, it's considered bearish, and when it's over, it's bullish. In other words, you want to consider taking entry when the price is above the cloud, and you want to consider selling or shorting when it's under the cloud. Okay. So right now, as you can see, this strong ramp up here, essentially that little 1 hour time frame, shot it right into the cloud, and about 4 hours later, one 4 hour candlestick later, it is essentially above the cloud. So oftentimes when you consider taking entry, say you had to take an entry back here, that would have been okay because you had a convergence on the MACD and the 4 hour chart. Normally I don't recommend buying into the cloud, but if there's other indicators present, that can work okay. So that would have been a good consideration for a buy signal back then. Let's go ahead and note also, or take a quick look at TD sequential. And let's see if we've reached a state of exhaustion yet. It doesn't look like it. In fact, it's retracing nicely. So as you can see though, do you see this 9 right here? That basically tells us that we had 9 hours of bullish momentum, and it was reset here again with this candle closing lower than the fourth one prior. So that being said, it just kind of reset. That's how retracements are good and healthy for bull runs. So this is actually a very good sign. That means there's more room for growth, and we may not reach in a state of exhaustion for a little while. So we're looking pretty good there. So all good things here for SLP for the moment. Now let's go ahead and clear that. Let's take a look at the EMA and VWAP. So if you're new to the channel, I'm a big believer on taking entry after confirmation. That's how I utilize my signal group. That's how I try to find good entry points. I almost always use this method. There's times when you don't have to, of course, if you have other indicators that are present, or just say you're trying to short, it's a different story. But what we're looking for here, first of all, is the price to be above EMA and VWAP. Now, if you're not familiar with the channel or just in general, the VWAP is this blue line here. It's a volume weighted average price. It takes the volume last 24 hours, expresses it as a price. Furthermore, it also tells us that the price is, when the price is above, it's considered a support level. When it's below, it's considered a resistance. So it's a continuous support and resistance level that moves with the price. But you do have to know that it resets every 24 hours. And there's no way around it because it has a standard deviation and it gets larger as time goes on. So it has to reset. So that being said, right here at 5 p.m. Pacific, likely, I think it's 1 a.m. UK time, it'll reset every single day. Okay, now it resets, and it's actually a good thing because of the fact that we need to have that standard deviation, kind of recalibrated. But at first, the first couple of hours, it can kind of be a little funny, where at the end, prior to that, it gets kind of exaggerated. Either way, the benefit of it is the fact that it does work as a consistent support and resistance level. So it works very well for day traders, more traditional stock traders like myself that have utilized that day in and day out. It works fantastic on the 1 to 50 minute charts. Okay. But what I like to look for is the price above EMA and VWAP. So first of all, just take a quick look here. We got the price above EMA and VWAP over here. So this would be a good consideration for potential entry. Let me further that first of all too with the fact that the EMA line, I use the EMA 15. So the EMA 15 is essentially this red line here, and when the price is above it, it's considered essentially bullish. When it's below, it's considered bearish. So we had bearish sentiment here. This would have been a good short position. We have bullish sentiment here. Good long position, right? So that's kind of the general concept. But when you're taking entry, you want to confirm that you're moving the same direction as the bulls, right? You don't want to just jump in arbitrarily. So the best thing to do is to make sure that the price is above EMA and VWAP, because first of all, it's above support. Check number one. It's above the EMA line, which is essentially a bearish or bullish trend, right? So right here is a good consideration, right? Just let's take a look at this. And the reason why I'm pointing at this is because I have these these little yellow up arrows essentially, and that's telling me that I have that confirmation, because this is an indicator that I was able to make, and that what it does, it allows for you to go ahead and see these signals quickly, so that way you can essentially be able to just jump right in. Okay. In other words, when we have this confirmation here, these are two good confirmation signals. So we got, first of all, 1 and 2 green bars closing over EMA and VWAP. Now, the reason why I like 2 is because it's a 30-minute confirmation. It gives me full on, 30 minutes knowing that the bulls are in control the entire time. I'm over support, so why not take entry? Okay. We've looked at all the other factors too. We have the MACD convergence, and that hit just a few hours ago, 12 hours ago. So we're started the bull run. That kind of signaled us. This further signals us and tells us that this is a good entry point. So how do we take an entry here? then we'd be looking at a pretty good profit. Let's see. Somewhere in the range about 26 to possibly 30%. Again, we're never going to be able to sell at the highest point. Even if you sell right in the middle, you would have sold right here. That's still a good, 5 to 10% profit. And those are things that we need to look for. Okay. So again, I know it's easier said than done because like, oh, where do I sell? What do I do? Well, oftentimes when the RSI gets up over 70 and it starts coming back down, that's a case in point when you want to maybe consider selling. So when the RSI comes back down right here, this would be a consideration to sell and or add to your position. But you see how it bounces off the EMA line here and it continues upwards. It'd be a much better consideration for it to bounce off EMA and wait, especially since you're already in that 10% in the green. You already took some profit. Why don't you move up your sell stop and consider waiting for the price to bounce off EMA? And once it does, it comes back up, then you can sell right here when the price comes down under 70 on the RSI. Okay, so that's a case in point. This is usually something that I utilize myself day in and day out, and I could see a good 20% gain. Now, me personally, I usually only shoot for anywhere between 3 to 6% gains per day. Don't get me wrong. When it's pumping like this, I'll stay in it and I'll get as much as I can out of it. But ultimately, what I'm looking for every day is to get small gains because that continues to add to my portfolio. Because if I'm growing my portfolio by 1% per day, I'm going to be very profitable at the end of the year. So if you know anything about exponential growth, it's one of the greatest wonders of the world. Think about that and use that concept. Have good risk tolerance, good risk management, and use something like this, and you'll be in much better shape. Okay. So I guess what I want to get at here is the prediction, because I get this question a lot, obviously, and that's the whole point of these videos, is kind of give you an idea of where it's heading, what we're planning to do. So, I mean, my prediction here, based on what I see so far, is that the price will likely try to push its way back up to 40 cents. It'll probably test that resistance level in the near future. Again, you want to kind of look at AXS and verify that. I mean, I have a previous review of that. I'll do that again soon. But Axie Infinity is kind of, moving along with this, and it's kind of a catalyst, so to speak. So pay attention to that too, because that does tie in together. So, bear that in mind. But yeah, again, I'd say my prediction over the next week would be to test 40 cents again to see. But bear in mind too, here, and let's double check this too. We do have a major resistance level at about 34 cents or 34.5. Okay, so that would be the next major point in which it might move up to reject, because that was the most, wasn't the all-time high, but it's the most recent high prior to this recent, higher highs, if that makes sense. So just pay attention to that. So if the price comes up to 34, just say round number 35 cents and rejects, then it's probably not going to go any further, or it might, try to test it a few more times before it moves up. So it could very well be, one of these, and then it goes like this, and then ramps up again. Or could obviously even come back down too and retrace. But the good news is that, it did pretty well when it came up here, and it only retraced about 50% of the way on the initial day to about 34. So I think that, we're looking to be in pretty good shape here with SLP. I don't foresee this coming back down again. There's a lot of fundamentals you want to do your research on with Axie Infinity and SLP2, but obviously it's something that's definitely very beneficial right now, and there's some really good stuff actually going on. So do your own research there, but technicals alone, I think there's much more room for growth. And I'd say that we have somewhere in the range of about 20% more growth before it hits a resistance. Okay, so hopefully you found this beneficial. If you do, please consider liking and subscribing. Reference my Patreon community as well. I have a really good, solid group there. We actually have a signal group that's trading at over 80% right now. We've had a little bit of trouble recently with the sell-off from Bitcoin, but now that we're shorting, I think we're going to be in the green and we're going to be all good. So check that out in your own time, but more importantly, reference the Telegram community. We've got a really good group of folks there, and we can all learn and grow together. So hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks again for your time. We'll see you soon.